Now, I didn't have a handout, but I see y'all did get the book, right? I contributed a few pages. So it's a good book. I read it. I think most everything's spelled right. So I'm sure somebody will point out if it's not. Well, let me say this. Most people do not seek a second opinion when it comes to cases. Most folks, if they come in and they get an opinion from you about your case, and you don't give them a favorable opinion, most folks just don't go get a second opinion. Now there are some that will get a second, third, fourth, fifth. They'll get a second opinion even when you have actually brought them on board. But most people just say, hey, look, I know one lawyer. That lawyer gave me an opinion, and she said I didn't have much of a case, and so I'm done. And so I try to take it very seriously that the people that I talk with, the only opinion that they may get about the merits of their case are from me. They don't go out and seek a second opinion. And let's be real practical about this. Most of us, there are lawyers that are good at getting cases, right? They know a lot of people. They're active in the community. They market heavily. Whatever their trick of the trade is, they get cases. And then there are the ditch diggers, the people who actually get out there and work the cases. Sometimes people do both. They get cases and work on cases. But here's the reality of it, especially in today's world, unless you've got a budget to have a billboard every 3 miles down the road, you're not going to get the cream of the crop cases. And what I mean by that is if we go home tonight, we turn on the news, and there was a horrific wreck, it appears to be clear liability, it happens in Montgomery, there's 3 children that lose their life, chances are you're not going to get the first look at that case, right? Unless you are in a Sunday school class where you know the family and they come to you, or you coach the softball team in the Little League. Look, it just doesn't work that way. Because most of us don't have the budget to market ourselves. And then there's some people who push the envelope in terms of how they get cases. So the case that comes into my office or the case that comes into your office, chances are on the surface of it, wasn't on Fox News at 6 o'clock. And they bring you all they know about the case, which is a police report. And you look at it, and you all have heard of the prime contributing unit, right? And I've often said, look, if somebody dies in a wreck, they don't get to give their version of what happened. And most people will go gray on you real quick. And so if you know, I was just in a wreck, this person died, oh my God, what's going to happen to me? I can go gray real quick. And suddenly it's not my fault. It's their fault. And so guess who the prime contributing unit is? Didn't get to interview the other fellow. And so they bring in a report, they hand it down to you, you look at it, it says prime contributing unit, not a whole lot we can do here. That's the only opinion they get. And they walk away, never seeking a second opinion, not knowing really the truth of what happened. Or let's say, for instance, you get one that says prime contributing. Wow, you're not the prime contributing unit. The other person is, well, I can do something with this. So you call the insurance adjuster. Let me tell you what they're going to say. If the prime contributing unit is their person, they're going to say, those police reports are not admissible. That officer didn't witness it. That officer is not qualified to say that. Have you talked to the witnesses? But if it's your client, first thing they say, did you see the police report? It's your client's fault. Man, I tell you, especially when you're a young lawyer and you got other people in the food chain above you, chances are the police reports that you get to look at are the ones where, man, it looks like it's my client's fault. And so what can you do? You can't just say, look, I'll set it aside. Not a whole lot we can do with this one. Well, if you did that, guess what? If you're a ditch digger, you'd never be digging a ditch. You'd never be working on a case. And so the point of this presentation for all of us, since we're probably not those that market every 3 miles on the highway, is that we've got to broaden our horizon about the cases that we're willing to take. And what I mean by that is that I think about 90% of the police reports that I look at where my client is cited as being the prime contributing unit, those are still cases that have significant value, especially if there is a significant injury or, unfortunately, even death. So broaden your horizon, okay? Don't just say, police report says it's my client's fault. There's nothing I can do about this. And then the second part, which we've learned from the focus groups that we've participated, is once you dig in, once you start digging the ditch, once you start narrowing your focus on the issues that mean something to people who actually may be sitting on a jury, chances are you're going to drive the value of your claim up. Now, I want to use a couple of examples today to illustrate exactly what I'm talking about. And it's not just police reports. Co mentioned something called like OSHA reports. OSHA reports are great sources, but they're notorious for blaming the employer because that's who they're there to investigate. Well, you know the law in Alabama. You can't sue your employer. Doesn't matter how bad it is. Not your employer. You can't sue them for anything but comp benefits. So you get an OSHA report, you get a police report, you get a crash test, whatever it is, don't get hung up on the initial impression. Okay, you see this picture? These are cases that we've worked on since the seminar last year to illustrate the point that I want to make. Y'all know what those are, right? Steel coils, you see them on the back of a flatbed all the time. They're heavy. These are tall and thin. And you rocket scientists to figure out they fell off the back of the truck, right? And look here. Let me point out. That's a shoe. There was a leg attached to it. Leg's no longer attached. It's a bad accident, all right? But when we get the case, we try to do some of the things that Co says, and sometimes they work. Sometimes they don't. Doesn't matter how nice we are. Person says, look, all you need to do is you just need to look at the OSHA report. Remember, it's one of those adjusters. If the report's good, you're going to hear, look at the report. Look at the report. Your guy's up there on the deck of a truck, not chaining the coils down. The employer hadn't trained him. OSHA regulation, this, that, or the other. No, thank you. We're not willing to negotiate. You're wasting our time. You know, you're everything wrong with society. You've been talked to like that, right? Ambulance chaser. They call you whatever. I had one lady from New Jersey one time tell my 10-year-old client that this wasn't a lottery, honey. I mean, it's crazy sometimes, some things. But anyhow, I'm not going to get sidetracked. Look, report says your client's fault. Okay, well, what's your options at that point? I know you're missing a leg, but look, OSHA report says bad. There's not a whole lot we can do with this. Broaden your horizon. There are so many things that you don't know about this case until you dig in. And let me tell you, if you've got a potential case where there's catastrophic injury or death, why not look into it? People are not supposed to lose their legs. People are not supposed to die. And just as an example, let me show you some of the things that we've learned from the focus group. One thing that always resonates with people as you're developing your cases is that concept of profits over safety. Y'all know what that means, right? And I'm not blaming companies. Heck, I'm a company. I'm part of a company. We're into profits. I got you there. But at some point, every business has to make a decision. Am I willing to put my love of money over the love of safety? Okay? Have y'all heard of e-discovery? Y'all know what that? I heard it for a long time. I didn't know what it was. I pretended like I know. It's about emails, right? Yeah, we request emails. And I finally ran into a lawyer that I worked with who said, look, we need to hire an investigator, a computer forensic guy to go in and look at their hard drive to do what? He said, we're going to comb through their emails. We're going to use buzzwords. We're going to use acronyms. And then he really went deep on me in language. He said, but we're going to find something. He said, I guarantee, and it only costs like $2,000. I guarantee you that we're going to find some documents to explain what happened. All right, man. I'm going to go with you on this, all right? So he showed up with this document. Now it looks like a diagram, okay? It was given to our truck driver, and it was told, look, you need to load these coils like this, okay? So far, so good. I got that. I understand that. Except, you see that diagram? I'm not kidding. In this e-discovery, we found this picture, all right? It was all associated with coils, and we started putting it together. And you see that picture there? That picture was taken in 2004, about 5 years before the accident. Coils are not supposed to do that. They're not supposed to tip, but I understand if they tip far enough, they fall off the back of the truck. It turns out that that diagram was the way they used to do it. But the problem was when you loaded it that way, these tall, thin coils had a tendency to tip, right? And then this picture shows up. It's like, well, now what's that? I don't remember seeing that. I didn't see that in the ocean file. I didn't see that in the ocean pictures. It turns out that these coils are so tall and thin that the person who purchased them insisted that they be placed in these specialty racks so that they don't topple over when they arrive at the warehouse. Well, that's making sense, right? But the problem is, I didn't see those anywhere near the truck where those coils fell off and took somebody. Profits over safety. I figured out what it was. And it was in an email, part of that e-discovery, that if I hadn't broadened my horizon, I would have said, not a whole lot we can do with this case, Pat. Read that. I suggest that we go back to the old diagram, because the problem is we don't have those racks up there in Detroit where we need to pick up the coils, and we need that steel so bad. Steel there, racks down here in Georgia. We need the steel. They don't have the racks. We need it. We need to make money. It'll save money. It'll save time. Hey, how about use those old diagrams? Don't we have some of those diagrams around here? Fax them things on up to Detroit. Let's get those coils. Now, look, I guarantee you I know my client, and he put a lot of trust in me to sit down in my office, and if I had told him, look, you don't have a case, I've looked at the OSHA report, you know what he would have done? He would have rolled right back out to his truck. His wife would have lifted him right up into that truck. They would have gone right on out to their farm. And that's where he would have been for the rest of his life, living in a house that wasn't set up to handle someone that only had one leg. There are people walking into your office who put trust in your opinion, and unfortunately, like me sometimes, I limit myself to say, look, I'm looking at the document, I can't broaden out, I can't see the potential, and that person never gets an opportunity to have representation and seek the compensation they so deserve. All right, let me give you another example, okay? So the point there is, look, I guarantee you in every case you can find an example of how someone deviated from a known safe standard to save money. I guarantee you. You can find it. Broaden the horizon, but narrow the focus to find that type of document. Okay, look, let me show you this. You know what that is? Again, look, I didn't go into the archive to find all this. This is stuff that we have looked at since presenting last year. Okay, and every example that I'm going to give you today is an example where an adjuster told me, did you look at the report? I mean, you know what happened, right? See the drug test? Oh, by the way, that first one resolved, the first part of it resolved for over $6 million. That's the first part of it, that one I just showed you. That client did a lot of stuff on that. A lot of stuff he needed. He's now got one of those legs, he can swim, he can exercise and get back on his motorcycle. He's got a life care plan. He's trying to get training. He's developing a farm where he can oversee people. Wouldn't have had those opportunities. Broaden the horizon, narrow the focus. Okay, here. Lady, now, and you got to remember this too, it's all temporal. Insurance adjusters are real critical of your client. They always make bad decisions. We always know something bad happened, right? I mean, we have the benefit of knowing something bad happened when the client comes in the office. What did that client really know right before the injury occurred? How much clout did they have? How much bargaining power did they have? How much time did they have to make a decision as compared to the defendant, the company? How long did they have to make a decision? Many times a worker is given minutes to make a decision that people are always critical of, where a company may be given 2 or 3 years. They consciously make a decision. Okay, look here. That's a dryer. You may not have one like that in your house. That's an industrial one where they clean like a lot of hospital linen and stuff. You know, a lady who's making $8 an hour, no bargaining power. They're making her work in the middle of the night. You know, she does what she's told and nothing else. Very limited education. Doesn't have an opportunity to go get a job elsewhere. She goes in here. She's got the glorified job of getting in the dryer. You lean over, and this thing's supposed to be supposed to collect lint, push it out. You never have to do this. Y'all know how that works. Lint get all stuck up. So she has to get in there and get the lint out, right? Now look, we all know where this is going, right? She's in there. She's getting that lint. It's on, by the way. Code's right. Code's right. Call him Code. What's my son's name? Code is right. There's surveillance cameras everywhere. This was caught on surveillance. She gets pinned. She gets crushed. Compresses her lungs, and she dies. So quite naturally, y'all know the drill, right? We know somebody's not supposed to die when they're cleaning lint out of a dryer. That's not supposed to happen. We contact. You looked at the OSHA report? Like, didn't I talk to you last week? Another report, same thing. Remember, OSHA's only there to investigate who? The employer. Now, they can broaden their... Look, there's not enough investigators. They're there to look at the employer, and they're going to find something wrong with the employer. And you know the drill. There's nothing in Alabama you can do because exclusive remedy is your comp benefits. So you know what the insurance... Look at the safety guard removed. Okay, y'all saw the title. Knowledge of danger. Broaden your horizon, narrow your focus. So now what could you do? I mean, you get an expert out there, it costs a lot of money, which we did. They look at the dryer. I just don't think a dryer should be designed that way, but you start looking at the manuals. Now, this is where the ditch digging comes in. At some point, you got to ask yourself, am I really willing to do all the ditch digging? Because let me tell you, it's not fun, right? Let me tell you about Cole. He's a ditch digger. I guess there's a lot of glory in being a lawyer. You see it on TV. You get great-looking suits. You know, you drive fancy cars. You're in the courtroom. A lot of drama. Everybody's good-looking. Ask Co. I'm looking around. You know, ask Co how glorious it is. You're sitting up there at 12:30. You know, it's all on camera. I'm going to be careful. But your wife saying, hey, how come you're not home? You're not home last night. You coming home tomorrow? This weekend, what you going to do? And she's nice. I mean, I'm not saying anything wrong with her. We all deal with a spouse, right? Kids at home, and you're trying to, 12:30 at night, you're going through documents, right? Co's got terrible eyes. I've seen him. He's got these glasses. He looks through them. And you're looking, narrowing the focus, trying to find something, and bingo! Do you really think you get it in the first response to your request for production? Do you think they're really going to turn it over to you in that first response? Forget it. You got to dig. You got to go. You got to file motions. You got to search. You got to do e-discovery. And finally, you come across varying editions of the manual for this particular dryer. Oh, you see that right there? See that red bar? That thing is supposed to, see it right here? That thing's supposed to catch right there. It keeps it, if there's a leak in the air hose, which it was in this, it's supposed to keep that shell from coming down and crushing somebody, right? Well, somebody like Co, going through all of the various manuals, you know, and can y'all imagine how sexy it is to read a manual on a dryer? Especially when you get down to the lint collection system. Yeah, baby, I'll be home in a little bit. I just got to wrap up chapter 8 here. It says that red bar is a safety device. So that pneumatic failure, which I had to look up, I think that's air. If there's an air leak, if there's an air failure, that red bar, except the problem is the manual that the company provided me, it says it's not a safety device. Well, what do you mean? Not a safety device? Old manual says it is a safety device. What happened? I don't remember seeing any test. How'd y'all reach that conclusion that that's no longer a safety bar? It was a safety bar. Now it's not a safety bar. What happened? What happened before my client got crushed to death to make you decide you change your mind? Now, did you go out and get those old manuals? It takes a ditch digger like Coe to find something like that. But again, you're sitting in your office. The only opinion that your client may, Jim, you know this, the only opinion your client may get is the one from you, and you say, look, I'd love to help you, but I've looked at Alabama law, and workers' comp is exclusive remedy, and the OSHA report says it's your client's fault, and the employer's fault, and there's not a whole lot we can do with that. Sorry your daughter about it. Remember, they may not get another opinion. Broaden the horizon. Knowledge of the defendant. And focus there, okay? Y'all want those shoes? Remember, this is all since last year. I didn't go in the archives to try to find, I got to find one example of this. Because remember, I don't have a billboard so I don't get to look at the cases where, someday we're going to get slammed up. Won't that be easy? Slam. Those are shoes. And anytime you see the paint on the road, it's not good. This gentleman was pushing his car, and I know we can fault him for this. He's pushing his car down the highway, ran out of gas. Most of us, it doesn't happen to most of us. We never have to worry about, do I have enough money to get to the next gas station? This fellow did. And so it's broad daylight, straight stretch, commercial vehicle, just trucks him. Pulls him up under the truck, drags him at least 1 football field length. He lived for a little bit at the scene and then died. I got the police report. Police report said prime contributing units, person who hit him, right? That makes sense. But y'all know the drill. If it's bad for you, they're going to say, look at the police report. If it's good for you, they're going to say, police report's not admissible. Officer didn't see it. Oh, and by the way, did you know your client had cocaine in his system? No, they didn't find anything. Now, I don't know what that has to do with anything. And I'm not a toxicologist. Okay? I know how to hire one to analyze things. But I'm not sure if you've got all the cocaine in the world and you're pushing a vehicle down the road that you deserve to get trucked. I don't get that. But anyhow, they'll say anything to you. Look at the blood test, toxicology, cocaine in the system. Now, what's your options, right? From the focus group, Coe kind of hit on this. I believe if there's one issue that resonates more with the focus group than any, especially in wreck cases, is people are shocked at records, driving records. I mean, they're just shocked. And what is so peculiar is, for instance, I think you could, look, a lot of people get DUIs. I'm not being judgmental, but you can have somebody who's being tried in a criminal case for DUI, and you can have somebody over there in the jury box who's been convicted of a DUI, and that person who's been convicted of a DUI will look at that other person who's being accused of a DUI and say, I can't believe they did that. I mean, it's so judgmental. But people get really judgmental on driving records. Now, they don't remember what their driving record's like. But when you can develop a driving record, in my judgment, if it becomes admissible, then you can overcome a lot of warts and wrinkles in the case. All right? So let me use, by the way, you don't get this until you start digging the ditch. You just don't get it, okay? Now, let me tell you what that is. I didn't do a good job. I should have made that bigger. It starts at 97, and it goes down to 2010. And every entry there is a wreck, okay? Yeah, that's a lot of wrecks. But now, those were all wrecks with the same company. The company that the guy was driving for that just ran over somebody in the middle of the road, okay? And each one of those was determined to be preventable on the part of that truck driver. Most of them involved hitting somebody from behind. And you see that point column? Those are points that says towards the driver. Now, I don't remember the adjuster telling me that. Now, maybe I got so hung up on the cocaine that she said, oh, and by the way, our drivers had 10 preventable wrecks, hit several people from behind. Okay? I don't remember her saying that. And I sure don't remember ditch digging. And let me tell you, they get you too, because you start filing these cases out of the county. Now, remember, they all get paid to drive down there by the hour. And I get so tired of going to court sometimes. It's like I file a motion, now I got to drive 60 miles. and you have several hearings, and you never get things like this until you have about that third hearing. This is a memo back from 1999, 11 years before the wreck. Some corporate official, saying, hey, look, there's no defense for hitting somebody from behind. Y'all got to terminate this guy. Of course they did. Or ditch digging since last year. I often wondered, and Code kind of pointed out to me, on the back of these vehicles, those phone numbers. I mean, I knew what they were. You call and tell them how great you're doing. People actually take time to do that. And most of the time, those calls are recorded. And most of the time, the transcripts of those calls are transferred over. This particular driver had 7 in a 14-month period. The company had 1,000 drivers, and he was the winner. He had more than anybody. He got the very first one, and he got the most. And again, I don't remember, Aaron, the adjuster telling me any of this. Broaden the horizon. Don't get hung up on a cocaine allegation. Whatever. It's in the book. They are paid to minimize your recovery. Nobody in the insurance company gets elevated because they paid too much. They don't come down and say, hey, look, you are an adjuster, now you're a manager because you paid out more than anybody. They don't do that. So do you expect that when they're talking to you, or even look, their lawyers talking to you, that they're going to say, hey, look, by the way, you need to check the driving record? They just don't do that. They're not going to dig the ditch for you. They're going to hope that you can't broaden your horizon and that you're not willing to spend 12:30 at night going through the documents. Now, I got to hurry up, right here. Yep. And then y'all get a break. I was wrong. Destruction of evidence is by far the worst. And unfortunately, I think it happens a lot more than what we realize. And let me tell you, it happens on both sides now. I'm always quick to blame the other side, but I think it happens a lot on the blame side too. I hate to say it, but you invest a lot of money in a case, and you've got $50,000 in a case, and now suddenly you got a bad piece of, I don't know what I'm looking at, bad piece of evidence, and gosh, what am I going to do with this? Do I really have to give that to them? If I give that to them, I'm going to lose that $50,000 I just invested in the case. Or if you're on the other side and you've got this big insurance client and they've already beat you down, but now you're working for $130 an hour. They used to pay you $108 an hour, and they get you $130 because this firm over here will do it for $125, and they'll do it for $115, and then they'll hire some kid out of law school and they'll do it for $95. If I lose this case, I may lose this client. I may lose my beach house, lake house, big house, whatever. And so suddenly I'm making a decision now about whether I'm supposed to produce this piece of evidence. And let me tell you, more often than not, there's a lot of folks out there who destroy evidence. Now, last year I gave this example. I told you all about the truck wreck. At least one person. About the truck wreck where we just said, look, it's actually the accident reconstructionist who's coming today is going to be the very same one in the case. All these trucks have black boxes on them. They're event data recorders. They got a lot of good information on it. I actually had a defense lawyer who does nothing but trucking defense tell me, look, this particular truck doesn't have a black box on it. We'd already run the serial number. We already knew that it did. We said, look, we want to take the download anyhow. Tell us when we can do it. Okay, fine. If you want to waste your time, doesn't have one, come up here July 3rd. So we go up there. And, of course, it did have one. But this was the email. The lawyer said, nor is there any electronic data. That's the words from the defense lawyer who does nothing but trucking defense. Okay? So we set it up for the 3rd of July. And this particular model only kept 2 events at one time, and once you get to a 3rd, it starts rolling off. Well, it turns out we downloaded, had plenty of data, except for the date of our wreck. And it just so happens that there were 2 events that occurred between the day we set up the inspection and when we conducted the inspection. Now, these events they happen like once every 14 months. And this truck driver had 2 in 5 days between the day we set up the inspection and the day we ditch digging. Somebody said, hey, get that. I ask these things all the time. You can get them, but the question is, what are you going to do with them? Expert looks at it and says, look, that's the log sheet. He's not even driving at the time that the hard braking event occurs, which means he's sitting in a parking lot just stomping on it to delete evidence. Last year I gave that. We had done the inspection, but we hadn't got the log reports in. We just thought they destroyed it. Now we know they destroyed it. And as code says, well, what happens when you present that to the adjuster on the other side? All of these cases, you're going to find yourself in the same position. Are you willing to broaden the horizon and say, look, I'm willing to look past the report at the possibilities that may exist? And then, am I willing to dig the ditch to find the document which is going to drive the value of the case? That's just 4 examples. All 4 were cases where my client was told to be at fault. All 4 of those occurred in the last year. All 4 of those resulted not from some mass marketing opportunity that our firm engaged in, but somebody just picking up a phone and saying, will you take a look at my case? Now, I wish I could take credit for finding the nuggets. I can't, okay? But fortunately, we got people who helped do that and who did that, who found that information. Now, that same opportunity is here for you. And look, I'm done. Thank y'all for being here. And if you have any questions, I'll be here the rest of the day. Okay? Thank y'all.